Welcome to The Burn, Beyond Firestop. I'm your host, John Zalepka. Our show, if you're not aware, is focused on life safety and code compliance in the built environment. So I'm on a mission to find the most interesting people in this space to get their unique perspectives. Our hope is that our listening audience walks away with an understanding of how our guests and their businesses or organizations contribute to the promotion of life safety of whatever is being built. Our show is brought to you by Specified Technologies, Inc., also known as STI Firestop. And since 1990, STI has been a leading global provider of innovative fire protective solutions that help stop the spread of fire, smoke, and hot gases. And our guest today is extremely familiar with such topics. Pat Tesche is the president of Global Fire Protection Group, which provides fire and life safety, engineering, consulting, and design services to customers throughout the world. Pat is highly respected in the industry with over 30 years of experience in passive fire protection and is well recognized in the codes and standards world. You can often find him doing third-party inspections, system audits, or giving Firestop training somewhere in the world. But today we pinned him down to our podcast, and with that, I'd like to welcome Pat. Welcome. Hello.
Hello. Good morning. How are you doing today, John?
Doing great, Pat. Thanks so much for joining us. So I'd like to start on a personal note rather than jumping into the whole business of things like I always do. And while I was doing my research for this episode, I noticed that you have a track record of volunteering. Now, I see you volunteered for the YMCA and in particular youth football. So does your passion for helping kids or giving back come from somewhere in your past, or what can you say about that?
Yeah, I guess my passion for being a volunteer and giving back to the community started with my father. He did it, through my whole youth experience through sports. So then when I had kids, I started doing helping with the coach, getting on the boards, getting involved. It's all about getting a stronger community. Presently, I'm on the board of Burt Bell football organization. Has close to 1,200 kids from outside the Philadelphia area. And none of my kids play, so I'm there just strictly to volunteer and help these kids have a good experience.
That's awesome, Pat. I mean, I've done my fair share of volunteering over the years, volunteering for different nonprofit organizations, so I understand what you mean as far as giving back, especially to the kids there. In fact, volunteering is how you and I met in person for the first time anyway. I don't know if you remember, we volunteered to give a 4-hour IFC inspector training in New York City. You remember that?
Oh, yes. It was for the New York City Transit Authority. It was the first time meeting you, and, I've seen some of your burns prior to this type of burn, and I'm like, man, I have to teach with this guy, give some training, because he has a lot of energy.
Wow, I wish I knew that at the time. I mean, I was so nervous. I mean, to meet you in person for the first time, you were so respected in the industry, and it was funny though. You were running late. I think you were coming from the airport. You were doing some training in Dubai or somewhere in the Middle East the night before, and I just remember you texted me, "Just get started without me." I'm like, "Wow, what do you mean?" But that was awesome. That was a great experience.
Yeah, we put it together and we got it done.
We did. I mean, I know that you have a passion for presenting. I mean, it's clear just from that first time in meeting you, but I mean, you do some training, not only, on behalf of your company, Global, but also on behalf of the International Firestop Council, which is kind of what we were doing there. So where did that passion for the industry come from?
Well, it all started after I went from being on the side of a contractor to going to the side of inspection and consulting. I noticed there was a lack of training in the industry when it comes to third-party inspection, and that became my passion. Listen, it was put in the codes in 2012, and I kept on seeing more and more people that just didn't know what they were doing. And I worked with the FCIA, the IFC, and other organizations to really get the training out there. And I think we're really making headway and really training people the right way how to do the inspection properly.
That's great. I mean, obviously raising those standards throughout the industry is important. But for the benefit of our audience, if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit more about the IFC and some of their inspector initiatives, perhaps some of the committees that they have. I know that I think you're on the Firestop Inspector Committee, and that makes sense.
No, actually, yes, it does. That's how I started. But now I'm the A1 committee chair, which is all the inspectors and consultants. We have a very robust program there at the International Firestop Council. It was developed by third-party inspectors, experts within the manufacturing groups, and other training entities. So what do? We have an 8-hour program. It's in class, hands-on. Now with the situation going now, we do it virtually. It's it's a little difficult to do the hands-on virtually, but we do an 8-hour program, and then there's a test. The test is very comprehensive. It's at least 40 to 60 hours reading. Everything is free online, other than the 2 ASTM standards, and you could look for all that information at firestop.org. The passing the test is 80%. There's 85 questions, and you have a 2-hour time limit to pass it. You can go and take a pre-test. It's 15 questions. Take the pre-test, just gauge your knowledge of Firestop and Firestop inspections. So that's some of the programs we have going on. As for committees, my group, we have so many committees going on. We have the Firestop Inspection Group Committee that does looks at the test, looks at their other items with training. I actually help write the destructive testing procedures. We have a committee for the Middle East, Firestop Inspection Training, which focuses on their codes, their standards. We actually are putting together a wood frame group. We have a wood frame group. That's because wood frame, as you know, is completely different than commercial construction, and how to inspect wood framing. That's just some of the committees we have going on.
That's great. That's a lot of great information there. And again, you'll want to check out the International Firestop Council at www.firestop.org. They have a lot of that great information, additional resources for proper system installations, which is really what it's all about, right? I mean, I know that one of your goals is to bring awareness to the construction community, in particular building owners and other AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction, in regards to those ASTM standards. 2174 and 2393, I think they are.
Yes.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know that you have a big part of what's going on with that.
Yes, so we get out there and try to explain, especially with it just getting into code and certain jurisdictions adopting the code or actually enforcing the code, of them getting the understanding what the ASTM 2174 is. And that's for through and membrane penetrations. What the destructive test post-installation, it's 2% within 10,000 square feet. What's the visual? There's 2 different types of methodologies. Or you could do a visual as 10% of the overall project. This is what we're out there trying to have people aware. Building owners, contractors, authorities having jurisdictions, what to expect when being inspected.
And then at 2393, the inspections are a little bit slightly different, right? 5%,
yes.
I believe.
It's 5%, but it's one sample every 500 linear feet of joint systems. It's for fire resistant joints and perimeter fire barrier curtain wall assemblies.
Now, we always speak to the contractors. They would obviously prefer that you do a witness test so that they don't have to come back and repair any deconstructive tests. But you as an inspector, what do you believe is a more accurate depiction of what's going on out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like doing the witnessing, but there's a lot of time constraints. A lot of projects very large. You would have to have multiple people. I really like to do the destructive testing, the post-installation, measuring, making sure the sealant thickness. This really works out and see what's actually installed in there.
Right, and that's all that came as a result of the IBC and the need for special inspections since the 2012 code. Is that right?
That is correct.
So, I mean, I guess the the thing to do then is to enforce that, or to raise awareness of the fact that this special inspection even exists, correct?
Yes, just making it aware that it's that it's out there, and seeing who's enforcing it. That's the challenge. What projects? If they're for Category 3, Category 4 buildings, what projects are actually being, is it being enforced? It's always in the specifications. It's in specifications in the master spec. So you see it on every job, but not every jurisdiction is actually enforcing that type of inspection.
Well, hopefully this podcast does a little bit to raise those standards and to make some other jurisdictions out there know that this standard exists, or the standard to inspect, and the fact that it's in the code. But tell us a little bit more about your work with ASTM. I know that you're part of the task group chair for 3038, the qualified inspectors, qualified Firestop inspections, right, or inspectors. Tell me a little bit about that. I didn't know that they had that coming. I was interested to see that. So
I've been working on the ASTM. It's the E06, the serviceability group, 06.21. And a couple years ago, I was asked to be the task group chair for E3038, which is assessing the qualifications of a Firestop inspector. And myself and I actually had a gentleman that helped me. We wrote a draft and we put it up out for ballot. And as you know, ASTM's an ANSI process, so you have to have consensus. You have negatives, and you go through the thing. It took quite a few years. In 2016 or 17, it was actually published. So I spent a lot of time on it. It's a really, really strong document. We're looking to put it into the codes or into another standard, to just make sure, here is your options. Here's what you're looking for when you're looking for a Firestop inspector. You just don't grab someone off the street who doesn't know anything. There's some kind of meat and potatoes to it.
Right. And you know a thing or two about that, because that's a big part of your work with Global Fire Protection Group, correct?
Yes.
Third-party inspection?
Third-party inspection is like 10 to 15% of our work. We really are a full-service fire protection engineering firm. We do fire alarm design, sprinkler design, code reviews, field consulting. We do a little bit of everything when it comes to the fire and life safety. Building audits, risk management for insurance companies. We really got together with a great team. I have 3 other owners or partners, and they all bring their unique skill set. They come from the other end. I come from the passive. They come from the active and the detection. So it was a nice combination that we all got together.
Yeah, and I checked your website out. You got a lot of great resources on there as well. That's globalfpg.com. Again, globalfpg.com. We'll put all these links in the notes as well. But you mentioned some of your other services include safety engineering, consulting, design services. How are you helping people in that regard?
So for design services, we're actually, there's some projects when we're doing design services on sprinklers, we go out and do field evaluation of sprinklers, perhaps recalculate the flows and doing flow testing, making sure the piping is right size. And with the passive fire protection, we do a lot of engineering judgment reviews. I've been running an engineering judgment review program for 13 years. Certain jurisdictions require a third party sign and seal. Global FPG is licensed in every state in the United States, all of Canada other than Quebec, Marian Islands, Guam, and Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia. So we really are one source. We have a program. You just send them to myself, or I have a project manager. You can always look on the website, and we have a program. We do third-party reviews of engineering judgments that were designed by the Firestop manufacturers. We also do have the liberty of doing some more engineering outside of alternative means and methods when it falls outside of the passive fire protection. So we have a bunch of people with a bunch of engineers with some expertise in that.
And you're doing work also around the world. I mean, I know you mentioned everywhere in North America, but I mean, you truly are a global company, correct?
Yes, we worked in 20 different countries in the past couple of years. We're part of a company. It's called Riskanet Network. We are their North America group. Riskanet is based out of the Netherlands. And what we do is we just, there are other engineering firms, India, the Netherlands, the UK, someone in South America, and we're all just, small to mid-sized companies, and we just, work with each other. So
that's great. But you're based out of where? Somewhere in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, Chadsford, PA. It's right outside. It's like 30 minutes outside of Philly.
Okay, and you're from Philly area originally?
Yes.
I know you went to Drexel, right? You got a construction
management
management degree there?
Yes, I went to Drexel. But before I went to Drexel, I actually was a union carpenter. I went through a full apprenticeship. That's where I got my first taste of Firestop. I was my first day on a job. They handed me a bucket of sealant, Firestop, and a UL book, and said, "Hey, start at this corner and start working your way around the hospital." 12 years later, I was still doing it, but I had many people underneath me, subcontractors. It was a really good experience. That's what really catapulted me into doing the passive fire protection for close to 30 years.
I mean, that I didn't even know that. I mean, but that's exceptional that you actually have that firsthand experience. I mean, I always make the joke that you go to trade school to be an electrician, and then you go out there, you think you're going to wire a building. No, you're going to fire stop today. But the fact that you did it for 10, 12 years, and now that you're also a business owner, I think that makes you awesome for your clients. I mean, for things like the change orders and the cost control and the analysis, the budgeting, things like that, because you know how long things take, and you know how they also should be done. So
the practical experience.
The practical experience. And I think that's the value that you bring, and that's tremendous. So I guess, hey, who's your ideal client? Let's give you a chance to sales pitch it here, right? What would you say to them if you had an elevator pitch? Or no, I mean, we told you about your website, but how would they get in touch with you? And go on.
So who's the ideal client? Well, first of all, a paying client is the ideal client.
Of course.
Listen, you could yell at me all you want. As long as you're paying, I don't care. No, honestly, what we tell clients is, or my elevator pitch is, we're independent. We don't represent any type of material. We are a representative of our client. We make sure the best interest of our client is being sought. From a cost perspective, client, or a risk perspective. We make sure our client is the number one. Client, it's a cliche. People talk about, customer service. You could talk to any one of our associates. That is one thing I talk about every day. Make sure the client we're on top of every client, and we know what everybody's doing, and make sure we're on time. That is my biggest thing. On time, on budget, making sure they know if any missteps are happening, or what's the best, new and greatest thing that they can use, but also be cost efficient. So
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Pat. Well, hey, thank you very much for your time. I mean, before I let you go, are there any upcoming educational speaking engagements? I know you just did something for FCIA last week. Any new codes or standards we need to be aware of, or anything else you want to promote while you have the microphone here?
Okay, so we're actually, myself with Steve Schwarthout and Justin Ebbett from STI, we're going to be doing this Washington State Builders Association on behalf of the International Firestop Council. That is next week. We broke it up into 8-hour class. We broke it up into 2 days due to 2 4-hour days due to its doing it virtually. So there's a lot of stuff coming out. We're looking forward to just trying to work it out before we go out to the public, but there's a lot of stuff the industry is working on. I work with a lot of people from the Firestop manufacturing group as STI, and we're always looking to better the industry, making sure people are aware, they're safe. It's all about life safety.
It's all about life safety. And thanks again, Pat. It was great getting to know you a little bit better today. And I want to thank everyone else out there for listening. We know there are a lot of podcasts out there. You've chosen to listen to ours, so thanks again. And be sure to check out those show notes for links to some of the things that we talked about in this episode. And finally, we really appreciate you listening. And if you'd like other people to listen and help support the podcast, please tell others about it. Share it on social media. Leave a rating and a review or whatever it is that you do with podcasts. And to catch all the latest and greatest from STI, check out our website at www.stifirestop.com. And until next time, this is The Burn.